Welcome into the Air Raid Hour, your go-to podcast for all things Buffalo Bills. On today's episode, we are breaking down everything from week 2 of the NFL preseason, who stood out in a good way. Hint, there really weren't all that many positives to take away from this game, and who stood out in a bad way. Hint, there's going to be a lot to talk about in that regard this evening. We're going to do all of that, and we're going to prepare ourselves for the start of the 2025 regular season. All that and more, but first.
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on X at the Bills Guys. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on X at Tilt Money. This show brought to you by the Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza. And before we get into the Bills talk tonight, Dave, like fans might be upset. There might be a lot of unknown variables about the Buffalo Bills defense this year. But the one thing we can say for certainty, we'll probably have a better defense than the Cincinnati Bengals. So we got that going for us at this point in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, like if that's what you're comparing your defense to, then you might be in trouble. But yeah, Jim Tripp came in the comments said, "I'm thrilled I missed this game," and I was like, I was texting you and Casey and Kyle. I was like, this is a brutal watch right now. But I watched the whole thing until I will say this: I did not watch the final kneel downs from the Bears, where they thankfully put the Bills out of their misery after the 2-minute warning. I did not watch those final snaps.
Ben Johnson looked like too. He's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to. He's like, all right, I'll do it. I'll kneel down here and end this game. The sicko part of me was like, all right, maybe they can score fast and like Shane Buechele can get us some points on the board before this thing ends. Like I'm that kind of sicko. I wanted that game to continue for at least a little bit. I was also having some fun just being an a-hole on Twitter last night because that's what I do when the Bills lose. I'm just an a-hole. So got that out of my system. So I'm here to give you more level-headed takes this evening. But I thought the commentary post-game was kind of funny. Sean McDermott was like, yeah, I was looking forward to seeing some guys get an opportunity to step up. And you know what? Nobody really did. Like Sean McDermott was pretty blunt in his assessment of how the game went. To me, that's pretty much of a yikes comment. But what is your initial reaction to, I don't know, like without getting into the specifics, because we'll dive into that over the course of the episode, like just what was your initial reaction to watching that football game?
Well, you could tell he was pissed. My initial reaction to watching the game was that I'll say it this way. Like I am understanding. I understand that it's preseason, and I understand that there's a lot of things that they're not doing. But for us to just gloss over everything completely and say none of it matters, I think is wrong. I don't fall into the group of it's just preseason and don't consider anything that happened in the game important to the team's success this year. I'm not in that camp. My reaction is that there were a lot of players that were playing last night that we expect to get significant snaps on this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that were no-shows, right? That were it was not comforting for a team that's expected to have a pretty heavy defensive line rotation, and for a team that already has question marks at certain position groups, to see the depth of this team really not coming through. And you can say, okay, the first drive was against the starters of the Bears and so on and so on. But like when it got to the point where it was the Bills' depth against the Bears' depth, they were still no-shows. Yeah. So I get it. I get it doesn't matter in the sense of like, it wasn't Josh Allen, it wasn't the starting offense, it wasn't the starting defense. But this team has faced a lot of injuries over the past couple of years, especially on the defensive side, and that is what you might get a glimpse into from some of the play you saw last night from some of the guys on the defensive side.
Yeah, and I'm sure when I go to read the comments tomorrow, I'll probably get like ripped to shreds, in some of the people leaving comments, and I might even get ripped to shreds in the comment section here too. But it's like, I want to preface it by saying, like, starters versus backups to start the game. The Bears weren't game planning, but still Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen are installing. So it's a little bit more than just the starters are out there kind of doing their vanilla thing. There was a little bit more to it than that, even though it wasn't a game plan specific to the Buffalo Bills. So starters versus backups, they rolled us. I mean, at one point, like Brandon Codrington was mano-a-mano with DJ Moore. Like, it's just not going to end well for you if you're the Buffalo Bills. I think Eric Turner did a great breakdown where it's like Dorian Strong was on Cole Kmet and Cole Bishop was on Zacchaeus. And it's like, what shouldn't they have switched? Like, shouldn't the corner be on the receiver and the safety be on the tight end? But there just wasn't any switching like that. So that just kind of goes to show you why that there was such a significant lopsided score in this game, in part. Then their backup came in and we had some third stringers. I mean, Trey Herndon, made an appearance in the first quarter and he got signed like 5 days ago, right? Again, game planning, but they still rolled us. Then as the game progressed, like, the rosters evened out and the Buffalo Bills were still bad and they were still flat and they were still like rather, I mean this with all due respect, like they were unserious in this football game. And this is not a football team, void of depth and talent at the back half of their roster. There are a lot of really good, at least on paper, names on this roster, 2, 3, 4 deep at a lot of positions. And the Bears backups, like, you had Miles Boykin just snatching ankles. Miles Boykin hasn't been relevant in years. Like, I mean, come on. This is 2 preseasons in a row where they just, I feel like, have no pulse compared to the team that they are playing against. And as a fan, that's frustrating and hard to watch. And I just feel like, and again, it didn't really matter last year because we won a ton of games and all this stuff, but it's just like, you'd like your backups to be like the hungriest, dirtiest, most get after it players on your football team because they are fighting for their football lives. And we just had a bunch of guys look lost and unserious out there. So it was a tough watch, but I understand that, like, at the end of the day, this is the last I'm going to complain about it. We all need to move on. But still, it's tough, especially as a fan, to watch your team play like that.
Well, and look, it's tough watching, especially when it was like depth versus depth, the lack of, I don't want to even say it was like lack of effort, because that would be maybe the wrong way to frame it, but just the lack of intensity, the lack of physicality, right? So there was a lot of things that I just thought the Bills were lacking, and it has nothing to do with the starters, right? It has to do with the fact that these, like you said, these are guys that are trying to jockey for position on the depth chart because they're going to make the team and probably contribute at some point, or to just outright try to make the team. And the intensity and the physicality was not there. It was mentioned multiple times on the broadcast as well. I think Greg Olsen mentioned it several times that the Bears were just way more physical than the Bills. And I don't even know, Jared K, to your question here. So the Bears depth is that much better than the Bills depth? I don't know that that's a yes. I just think that the Bills depth, like,
that's my point. That's why it's so frustrating. Like, on paper, I don't think the Bears backups are like better than the Bills backups. And that's why we lost this football game. Like you mentioned it, like intensity, focused, get after it, just like looking like they wanted to be there. One team took it to the other team and dictated how the game was played, even after the starters were out. Like, no one on the Buffalo Bills like stepped up. Nobody got riled up. Nobody tried to make a big play. When a big play was made, nobody got overly excited. Like, there was just no energy on that sideline. And I don't understand it when there are guys, as we have mentioned, are fighting for their football futures. It was baffling to me to have to sit through that. But we actually have a really fun night planned for you tonight. We're going to do a bunch of different sort of buy or sells to really get talking about this roster and talking about the game and mixing a whole bunch of sort of things together to have a fun little conversation as we walk our way through the depth chart. But first, a quick word here from our sponsor.
What's up, y'all? Khalil Shakir here. When I want Buffalo pizza, it's got to be Picasso's.
Picasso's.
Khalil Shakir. Your team, our pizza. Picasso's. This is Buffalo Pizza.
Hungry? Get ready for flavor that's a masterpiece. Picasso's Pizza has been serving up legendary pies since 1980, fresh dough, premium toppings, and that famous cup and char pepperoni. Whether it's game day, your lunch break, or a late night craving, Picasso's hits the spot every time, and you do not need to be in the 716 to order. You can get it delivered fresh nationwide. Head on over to picassospizza.net for details. Once again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, Dave, I really want to get into it tonight by having some interesting buy or sell conversations. And each buy or sell is sort of themed around a position group. And we're going to go in reverse order because I think right now defense is really what Bills Mafia wants to talk about compared to maybe the less urgent things that are still fun to talk about on the offensive side of the ball, but definitely less urgent. So I want to start with the safety group, and I want to start with this buy or sell. And let us know in the comment section what you think about these questions, whether you'd buy, you sell, and your reasoning why. And we'll put some of the reactions up on the screen here. But buy or sell, the safety group is the weakest unit on this football team.
Oh, it's a buy for me. I mean, I think that was a buy regardless of what happened in this game. Okay, so I want to kind of separate that. Like that's not a reaction to this game. That was my thought going into training camp. That was my thought even after free agency, after the draft, like that, the safety position, weakest / biggest question marks, right? Time will tell how weak it is, but I think it's fair to say the biggest question marks for sure at the position, because as you start to go through other position groups, even on the defensive side, like linebacker, you're established with Milano Bernard. You got Dorian Williams. The defensive line has established guys. The offensive line clearly is intact from a year ago. Quarterback, obvious. Running backs, same group from a year ago. Tight ends, good group with Kincaid, Knox, right? Receivers, you've got Shakir back. You've got Coleman going into year 2, et cetera, right? So I just don't see how you look at that group, and then other than maybe saying corner, which you kind of almost have to rule out because you have an all-pro caliber player in Christian Benford at one of the corner positions, and you have all-pro Taron Johnson, it's not even in consideration to me. So to me, yes, it's a buy. It's safety is the biggest question mark / weakest position group on this team right now for sure.
Yeah, I'm buying that as well. I mean, you just look at the depth chart from top to bottom. You have Taylor Rapp, who's one of your starting safeties. He's a high variance player, and he's often injured, and that's your best player at the position group. Then you have Cole Bishop, who I think the reward is high with Cole Bishop. He's a very high-end athlete. He was drafted rather high in the second round, maybe a tad overdrafted, but not crazy overdrafted. It was a weak safety group. You can make the argument that he was the best of that group that year he was drafted, but he's still an unknown, and you are banking on a high variance, oft injured player and an unknown player who also has now shown that he really can't stay healthy in Cole Bishop. Then you got DeMar Hamlin and Cam Lewis, who are not guys you want more than just as pinch hitters. If DeMar Hamlin or Cam Lewis start a game or two, cool. They got to start 10, 12, 13, 14 games. Oh boy, like you're in trouble. We kind of put the rose-colored glasses on for Derek Forrest. We thought, hey, maybe the Buffalo Bills will find a steal here, but he sort of decided to go to the Mike Edwards School of Disappointment. And we really haven't heard much of Derek Forrest in this training camp. I kind of want to use the Step Brothers analogy here. Like I'm sure almost everyone here has seen the movie Step Brothers, but there's the scene where John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell are interviewing for a job with Seth Rogen, and they're wearing a tuxedo, right? And they're just killing this interview. And Seth Rogen's like, yeah, you guys are hired. And then one of them like rips a fart. And then he's like, did you just fart? Like, and he's, I can taste it. And then he's like, you know what? The more I think about it, like the suits are kind of effed up. That's the safety position to me. Like, I've been kind of excited all summer about Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop. I'm like, hey, I think that like they're not Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, but they have a ceiling that I think is really high. And then I go out and watch them play in the preseason. I'm like, you know what? it's kind of effed up. Like maybe I have been putting on those rose-colored glasses and not looking at this position group appropriately because, like, I mean, really, if you look at it, like, there's no plan B here for the Buffalo Bills. Like, there's no real investment in the draft in the Bean era in this position group, which in a McDermott defense is like the most important position group. Cole Bishop, that's it. Like DeMar Hamlin, Jaquan Johnson, they've invested nothing. And it almost gets your brain rolling. It's like, well, and again, I don't want to play this game, but your brain almost goes there. It's almost like, well, what could we have done this past draft to not have been in this situation? Well, Malachi Starks is off the board, so we can't really lose sleep over that. You know, Nick Imanwari, kind of a line of scrimmage guy. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. I like the ceiling of Malik Hairston. He's like, but man, like TJ Sanders, you're now going to get compared to Andrew Makuba, who got taken later on in that round. Landon Jackson, you're now going to get compared to Kevin Winston Jr., Jonas Sanker, Xavier Watts. Deion Walker, you're now going to get compared to Billy Bowman, Lathan Ransom, Malachi Moore. The Bills probably could have, if they wanted to, secured this position group a little bit more than they did. They chose to go in other directions, and it's going to be really interesting to see comparing the production of the guys they did draft with the production of the guys who they could have drafted at the safety position, the weakest position group on the team.
Yeah, and if you listen to Brandon Beane during the broadcast, right, last night, he talked about like one of the things that the Bills need to do being in the AFC is to get to these quarterbacks, Burrow, Mahomes, and Lamar, he mentioned specifically. And so you can understand, he's justifying essentially the reason that they invested so much in the defensive line, which I think, look, we all wanted them to, like they needed to do that. But like, I think that there was no, like you said, there was no upgrades made at the safety position, right? I think like Derek Forrest, I agree. I had higher hopes for him. Like you can go back and watch prior shows during the summer, whatever. Like I had higher hopes for him, and I was like really convinced it wasn't going to be another Mike Edwards situation, but it's seemingly looking like that. And as it stands right now, you're looking at possibly DeMar Hamlin as a week 1 starter for this team if Cole Bishop can't figure things out here in the next couple weeks. And I hate that because I loved Cole Bishop in the pre-draft process. I still have some faith that there's a path or a trajectory where he does become a solid starter here. And then you kind of have this wild card now with Jordan Hancock, who I thought played relatively well, all things considered, last night, although there's still some high variance to his game, and there will be high variance to his game coming out, and McDermott said that as well. So it's a high variance group. Health has been a concern, and now what you're basically at is a situation where your presumed 2 starting safeties are injury prone, right? Yep. Like I think it's fair to say that Taylor Rapp is somewhat injury prone, and Cole Bishop through 2 off seasons with the team, his rookie year and now this year, has been injured in both training camps. So I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, to be clear, like I like the Bills draft. I fully supported the draft after it was over, and I will continue to fully support the draft because I think that I see the vision. You're adding that speed, that acceleration at CB2, guy who can jump the ball, make plays. You're adding these penetrating defensive linemen to sort of create some more havoc on the quarterback and collapse pockets to make the life easier for the guys. And I understand the way who they drafted and why they drafted them, but at the end of the day, it's a production business. So if safety is a problem all year and some of these other guys struggle, you're just naturally going to compare those 2 position groups. But you mentioned in the comment section have mentioned Jordan Hancock too. And when the Buffalo Bills drafted Jordan Hancock, it was like all the talking point was like, yeah, he's going to be a nice utility backup. We'll play him a little bit at nickel. We'll play him a little bit at safety, and we'll move him around. He'll be a nice versatile, like maybe upgrade over Cam Lewis. All of a sudden, it's like Jordan Hancock's a safety. Like the only reason he was even in the game at nickel linebacker yesterday is because not nickel linebacker, nickel cornerback, is because Brandon Codrington was the only healthy nickel cornerback on the team. So they kind of had to move Jordan Hancock there. And then when Jordan Hancock left the game, they just went 3 linebacker the rest of the game. Like they didn't even try to put a nickel corner on the field. So literally they have moved Jordan Hancock to safety. And there is a reason why they have moved Jordan Hancock to safety. I feel like they need that upside after Cole Bishop. Like if Cole Bishop gets hurt again or Taylor Rapp gets hurt again, and they find themselves in this situation where they have to go to Damar Hamlin and they have to go to Cam Lewis, I think they just kind of want an upside option where maybe week 10, 11, 12, they feel comfortable putting on the field, and he gives you a little bit higher of a ceiling than those two.
Yeah, because again, like people get frustrated about the angles Damar Hamlin's taken on some of these, or like you're going to get frustrated with Jordan Hancock at times right now as it stands, but you're almost willing to accept that with the upside, right? That he could potentially bring as well. So like you said, if that's later on in the season, we'll see kind of what happens. Like that's great. It's at least looking like he's on a nice trajectory. Even if he doesn't contribute a ton in 2025, maybe into 2026. So like it's a nice prospect to have on the shelf. And you just hope that what plays out is that Cole Bishop figures it out and him and Rapp stay healthy and those two can really be good this year. And you have Hamlin and Lewis as kind of like your pinch hitters as you referred to them as. But that's a big if right now. That's a big if.
It'll be interesting to see if the Buffalo Bills reach a breaking point at this position with how thin it is, whether they call Justin Simmons, whether they call up Jordan Poyer. Like it'll be interesting to see what kind of pivot they make. Swin comes in and says Dwayne Carter is looking like a bust. And I don't want to talk too much on the Dwayne Carter thing, but the Dwayne Carter thing is frustrating. This is a guy where they drafted him. You want him all through college. He's a penetrating 3-tech. He gets here and they're like, you're a 1-tech now. Why do you think he's not swimming? Why do you think he's sinking? You've put ankles around his weights. And then you go and you draft 2 other guys, TJ Sanders and Deion Walker. And it's like, well, we don't like Brandon Beane is open limit is like, we don't really know what to do with Dwayne Carter. Like he's just going to have to fill in wherever necessary. You used a 3rd round pick on this guy and you're openly admitting in interviews that you don't have a plan for him. Like that's frustrating. So Dwayne Carter is on the roster bubble, I think. And we just saw a trade yesterday in the National Football League, Kalen Saunders for Luke Fortner, a player-for-player swap, guys who kind of fell out of favor with their organizations, New Orleans and Jacksonville. We're getting to the point where like, hey, let's start to look around the league for safeties, for linebackers, for wide receivers who might be like on the outs with their team, some guys with some potential, some upside who, if they came here, they might be a better, more natural fit here. And we might be talking like Dwayne Carter player-for-player swap at this point. Like, Dwayne Carter could be on the trade block right now, realistically, I think.
When was the last player for player swap trade the Bills did? Was that McCoy for Alonzo, or was it
Hughes? They had Hughes for
for Shepard.
Was
that after McCoy?
Oh, it was no. It was didn't they get one of their tackles, like an offensive lineman? There was like a swap of an offensive lineman. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It's been a while. It's been a while, but there've been a few back in the day, and some were successful, some not so successful. But I think we could be going down that road where it's, hey, we're just going to trade Dwayne Carter to a team that liked him in the pre-draft process last year for a 5th round pick, or we're gonna swap Carter for another player that we liked at another position group that has a better chance of contributing to the football team. This team's looking to offload him. They're looking to add a D-tech. Like, we could be getting that point. We could be getting to that point with Dwayne Carter soon, which is really super frustrating. All right, on to the next position group that I want to talk about here, and that is linebacker, right? Got to see a lot of our depth linebackers yesterday. So my buy or sell here for the linebacker position is Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. Are they your least expendable starters outside of Josh Allen in 2025?
Wow. Least expendable starters overall or just on the defense?
Let's stick to the defense. Are they your least expendable defensive starters?
Least expendable. Wow. As a group, yeah. I mean, probably, right? I mean, you start to think about, like, you don't want Rousseau to go down. You don't want Ed Oliver to go down. But if you're grouping them together, and without both of them, you're talking about like Andreessen and Dorian Williams. And by the way, I don't even know now that Andreessen's a roster lock, so I'm gonna kind of re-pat myself on the back, saying like he's not a guarantee to make this team again. But I think I'll buy that. It's a lukewarm buy, but I'll buy it. But I would say it's close between if you were just going to pick one of those guys, I would say no. But if you're picking them as a tandem, because I'll put it this way. If you were going to say like Bosa and Rousseau versus Milano and Bernard, I might say Bosa and Rousseau, right, as a tandem. But if you're saying just them versus singular players, I'll say them. Yeah, I'll give it a buy.
Time comes in and says, "Is AJ Klein available?" He's not, but if you watched the show last week, you know that Balin Spector is legally changing his name to AJ Klein, so the Buffalo Bills will give him another shot. So we have that to look forward to at some point. But I'm actually buying this because, listen, I pointed this out before this game against Chicago. Like, Joe Andreessen, if he really wants to be something in the National Football League outside of a backup Mike and a special teams player, he has to do things in pass coverage. And you kind of saw him get exposed in pass coverage against the Chicago Bears. Last year when he blew up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, that team wasn't throwing the ball past the line of scrimmage. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Like, it was Russ Wilson. It was Mason Rudolph. They weren't throwing the ball down the field. I don't even know if it was Mason Rudolph. It was somebody else, but they weren't throwing the ball down the field. So Andreessen could really theoretically have a big day. Here, he was really struggling to pass rush. Dorian Williams, we're in year 3 with Dorian Williams. He's still not good dropping back into coverage. He's getting better, but he's still not very good. I trust both those guys at the line of scrimmage and run support. I trust them both, but I don't trust them dropping back into coverage. It's a mess, and it makes everyone else worse off. It hurts your nickel corner. It hurts your safeties. It hurts your cornerbacks. Like, to me, losing the 2 of those guys or even one of those guys and having to put the other on the field really does a number. And that's why I think maybe one of the low-key players we're not talking about that could be a factor this year, knowing and understanding the injury history that Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano has, is a guy who's injured right now himself, Shaq Thompson. Like, I kind of laughed at the signing when they made it. I'm like, he's not going to make the team. He's old. He's busted. Like, what are we doing here? You know, I want to see Edifon Ulofoshio play. Like, where the heck is that dude been? Like, to me, Shaq Thompson, if when healthy, he could be a bigger factor than we think.
Yep. Yeah, I think they'll keep him for that reason as like a fail safe. He could become like the new AJ Klein for Sean McDermott. Moving on to his next love child there. So, wouldn't surprise me at all if he makes the team. And like, it's going to depend a little bit on his health, right? They might do kind of like an injury wave type of thing and then bring him back or something. But yeah, I could see that being the case.
And the thing is like, we've seen this nightmare at the linebacker position play out before. And I mean, both of us kind of like the safety position. We kind of fell for it. We were kind of not worried about linebacker at all heading into training camp. And now I'm really worried about it because it seems, again, like the Buffalo Bills, there's only so much you can do in an off season, but just
I'm worried about the depth maybe more. Yeah. I'm not worried about the start.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the starters at all. Not even a little bit. But we have seen that those starters can't stay healthy.
Right.
And that's what kind of is this. If those 2 stay healthy, we're not talking about any of this at all this year. It's kind of just not something we're talking about. Like, and Keontae Jenkins, could Keontae Jenkins be a surprise 53-man roster player this year? I think he could.
Yeah, I mean, it may become down to him or Shaq Thompson, right? It also could be that they maybe pick Keontae Jenkins over Andreessen, right? Like, I feel like how valuable is Andreessen right now as a backup? I don't know, right? Like, his value is a little bit on special teams if he can improve a bit in his pass coverage, but that was really bad last night. So, and he played the entire game, which is also interesting. Like, McDermott left him out there the entire game, maybe sending a bit of a message as well there. Could have
had Sean Dolak. That's all I'm going to say. Could have had Sean Dolak. Chose Caden Prather. All I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it there. As a UB alum, right, with the Naaman Roosevelt sign there, I'm allowed to be a little salty about that one. All right, on to our next topic here. Dave, this is your favorite topic. I think this is something that you love talking about. This is the Buffalo Bills' third and long defense. I think it took a couple of years off of your life last year. So let's have a conversation about it, because why not tonight? We're just self-hating here tonight, self-emulating here tonight. But buy or sell. Last year they always talked about we need to marry our pass rush and our coverage better. Our rush and our coverage. We need find a better marriage between those two things. Buy or sell. There will be a better marriage, finger quotes, between the pass rush and coverage in 2025, meaning the Buffalo Bills will be able to get off the field better on 3rd and long.
If the buy or sells that the Bills will essentially the question kind of is their third down defense going to be much improved from a year ago? How
about this? Because they were bad. So that's maybe about bad. Buy or sell, the 3rd and long defense will still be a problem in 2025.
It'll still be a problem. It will be a problem. Yeah, I'm saying so. If the question is 3rd and long defense will still be a problem, I'm buying that it will still be a problem because they just haven't really been good at that for a couple years now. And I really, with the safety position in as much question as it is, I have a hard time thinking that it's still not going to be a problem because until the Bills come up with some unless they're the top of the league in sacks or something like that, the bread and butter last year was creating turnovers, their turnover differential. So that's something they're going to hopefully still lean on because the 3rd down defense was a problem last year, was a problem the year before. I think it's still going to be a problem. So I'm going to say buy the 3rd down defense overall, short and long, right, is going to be a problem still. Yeah.
I'm going to sell. I think our 3rd and long defense will be significantly better in 2024. And there's a couple of reasons for my take here. Number one is they brought Ryan Nielsen in, and there seems to be more of a willingness to send multiple guys. And I know it hasn't looked good in the preseason, but it's not schemed in the preseason. I think when they scheme it in the regular season, it'll look better, especially on the back end. And I think that the willingness to send multiple guys will give one-on-one situations to Joey Bosa. We'll give one-on-one situations to Gregory Rousseau. We'll give one-on-one situations to Ed Oliver. And I think they'll take advantage of those situations. That will help, I think, our 3rd and long defense. When they make the decision not to maybe send a bunch of guys, we're going to get to run defense next. And I have my qualms there. I have my misgivings there in terms of run defense. But I think TJ Sanders and Deion Walker and Larry Ogunjobi will be better interior penetrators on passing downs, interior disruptors on passing downs. And again, even if maybe the Buffalo Bills are still going to have some explosive run issues because we saw those guys get kind of pushed around in the preseason game, I think once you're scheming a little bit more than you were in these games, I think these guys are all guys who have shown that they can create a little bit of havoc, collapse the pocket a little bit, get their hands up, get their paws up, make the quarterback feel uncomfortable. And I just think that alone will help our 3rd and long defense.
Well, I hope you're right on that because you're a little bit more optimistic than I am about that one.
And that brings us to the next conversation surrounding the defensive line and other parts of the defense as well, because they work as a unit. They each do their 1/11th. But the next topic of conversation here is the run defense. Buy or sell. Explosive runs surrendered won't be as big of an issue for the Bills in 2025. If you look at EPA, if you look at just general rushing statistics, the Bills were not terrible. Their issue was giving up explosive runs, or 1 or 2 running backs would have absolutely nutso games. So explosive run surrenders, will that not be as big of an issue in 2025?
It'll be about the same type of issue it was a year ago. And so I'm going to say, I guess it's a sell, right? I don't think it's going to be less of an issue. I think it's going to be about the same as it was a year ago. And the reason I say that is because I think it's going to take some time for TJ Sanders to kind of find his groove. Number 2, Deion Walker is not really a run stuffing player. He's a penetrator. He's probably going to be even playing a little bit on the edge. Ogunjobi's out for the first 6 games. So you're essentially left with really Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones again. You're running that back on the interior again, like you did a year ago. And until TJ Sanders kind of maybe helps solidify that interior, which by the way, I do think he can. But I don't know that it's going to happen immediately. So I will say yes. Giving up explosive runs will still probably be an issue for the Bills. You look at their statistics a year ago, they gave up 4.5 yards per carry. That was about slightly below middle of the pack. They were slightly below middle of the pack in rushing yards per game allowed overall. They did give up the second longest rushing play in the NFL last year, an 87-yard run to Breece Hall, as we saw. So there's still going to, and Jonathan Taylor had a few as well. I think it's still going to be a problem. I'll say, I think it'll be similar to a year ago where it's not markedly better until maybe later in the season, which would actually be great as TJ Sanders kind of gets more experience.
I don't know why I shouldn't be, but I'm feeling optimistic tonight. I'm going to buy that explosive runs surrendered won't be as big of an issue for the Bills in 2025, but I'm going to go with the caveat here that it might take a little bit of time because obviously we played the Ravens week 1 and they're probably going to run the ball all over us. And number 2, I think health is the main sticking point. But I just look at this defense and I'm like, all right, who are the guys that I trust? I trust Joey Bosa to set a good edge. I trust Gregory Rousseau to set a good edge. Epinesa, I trust to set a good edge. Michael Hoyt, based on what I've seen in the preseason, I'll trust him to set a good edge. So I feel confident, and Hoyt, again, is suspended for the first 6 games, so that kind of stinks, and that kind of puts a little bit of a wrench in it. But I trust, for the most part, our edge rushers to set the edge. I trust Ed Oliver, and that's about it in terms of run defense of our interior guys. But then I trust Milano, I trust Bernard, I trust Taron Johnson to stop the run, but they are on the smaller side, and there's, at least in terms of run stuffing, not a lot of beef in front of them. There's beef in front of them, but not run stuffing beef. I trust Benford. I trust Rapp. When third linebackers come out, I trust Dorian Williams. The wild cards are, what does Daquan Jones have left? What's Larry Ogunjobi going to do when he's back? Sanders, Walker, Solomon, Landon Jackson, Cole Bishop, Harrison. There's a lot of question marks. But then there's the guys I don't trust. I don't trust Trey White. I don't trust Damar Hamlin. I don't trust either of them at all, period. So there's only 2 guys I really don't trust at all. There's a lot of wild cards. So I think the nucleus is there if they stay healthy to make it work, especially when you're scheming specifically for the opponents that you're playing. And I think there's enough guys I trust there, but really it's going to, at the end of the day, it's going to end up coming down to, as you mentioned, TJ Sanders and Deion Walker. Low man, Greg made a great point last night. Greg Tom said it on the Disguise Coverage post game. He was like, low man wins and Deion Walker doesn't get low. He's Jordan Phillips, guys. He's Jordan Phillips. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of names here that I trust in run support. I think it's a good nucleus. It's going to be really interesting to see if the wild cards drag them down or prop them up, and if we can stay healthy. But this is another situation too, where again, I fully supported the draft the Buffalo Bills had. So this is not me trying to second guess Brandon Beane, but you will look back at this draft class and be like, we drafted TJ Sanders and Deion Walker, 2 penetrating 3 techs. We already had Larry Ogunjobi and Dwayne Carter and Ed Oliver penetrating 3 techs. The rumor was the Bills wanted to take Tyleek at 30, but he was off the board by 30. But you look at the second round, right? They took TJ Sanders and Deion Walker. They could have had Alfred Collins, who went like 2 picks after TJ Sanders. Bona fide run stuffer. Bona fide, just plug him in there. He's going to help you stuff the run. Right? Even if they took TJ Sanders in the 4th round, did you have to double down with Deion Walker? A couple of picks later, CJ West came off the board. Who was my comp for CJ West? DJ Jones from the Denver Broncos. What is DJ Jones? Just a bona fide run stuffer. The Bills could have drafted a bona fide 1 tech in Alfred Collins or CJ West. They chose to draft 2 penetrating 3 techs. So it's going to be questioned over the course of the season, watching some of those guys play and watching the Buffalo Bills play and how TJ Sanders and Deion Walker and how this whole scheme works in terms of stopping the run.
I know. And that's the thing. It's like every year it feels like we have the same conversation over and over again about when are they going to invest in like a run stuffing 1 tech, right? So
and they never do.
and they never do. So that's why I'm going to sell this one again. So
the next one is just the edge rushers in general. Buy or sell. Javon Solomon and Landon Jackson can keep the edge rotation afloat until Michael Hoyt returns. Because my big fear right now is that those 2 don't make much of an impact we're seeing them get opportunities, individual, non-schemed opportunities. Haven't really impressed all that much in terms of Landon Jackson. There was a couple of positives in the Bears game, but a lot of negatives for Landon Jackson. My concern is we want to keep Joey Bosa on a pitch count, but with Michael Hoyt suspended for the first 6 games, we're going to see a heavy run of Joey Bosa. And could that possibly end up, hurting him in terms of his health?
Yeah, but look, I'll put it this way, right? I mean, I think this is also like kind of what's keeping AJ Epinesa from being traded as well. Or I shouldn't say that's the only reason, but like it is certainly something that probably will stop Brandon Beane from trading him before the season starts. I think you can get away with Bosa, Epinesa, Rousseau, and then some combination of Jackson and Solomon for the first 6 games. So I think probably going to go opposite of you on this one. I'm going to buy this one and say that Solomon and Jackson can hold down that sort of 4th defensive end spot, in the meantime until Hoyt gets back. I still think that you can somewhat preserve Joey Bosa because, again, that's 2 guys that you can kind of flash in on top of having Epinesa and Groot still there. Not to mention you may be able to even use Deion Walker a bit on the edge at times. So I do think that that group can hold down the fort until Michael Hoyt comes back. And I also want to just say, like I like Michael Hoyt. I think he's a really good player. I think he will be have a good impact on this defense. Like, is he going to be a savior of this defense in week 7 when he comes back? Like, that's a stretch to me, right? So I think it's going to be meaningful when he comes back, and it'll be nice to have a healthy edge player coming back that you did put some term against from a contract standpoint. But I'll buy that Solomon and Jackson can kind of hold down the fort until he gets back.
I think he could be a savior in the fact that he really can help you keep Joey Bosa on a pitch count compared to the other 2. Like he's a savior. He's a savior in that he allows Joey Bosa to be a savior. Like maybe he's a savior twice removed or once removed. But yeah, I'm actually going to sell this. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to end up having to lean on Joey Bosa a little bit the first 6 games with Michael Hoyt out. I think one thing that fans are going to have to prepare themselves for is seeing Landon Jackson as a healthy scratch for most of the first 6 weeks, barring injury. I just don't think he's ready yet from a foundational standpoint. It's kind of weird, right? You look at Jackson Hawes and Landon Jackson. Both of these guys played a lot of special teams in college, enough to the point where you're like, well, that's really cool. They can be depth players early on. They can play special teams, blah, blah, blah. But we haven't really seen either of them play special teams a lot in the preseason. Javon Solomon is their trusted special teams guy. He logged a lot of snaps in that Bears game. Landon Jackson only got like 2 snaps. Jackson Hawes has gotten a couple of more in the second week than he did compared to the first week where he didn't get any. I think it's like the Bills want Jackson Hawes and Landon Jackson to compete and to not produce, but get involved in and be a part of the defense and the offense to the point where they're like, we don't want to stretch you out with special teams too much right now. We want you guys to focus your attention. Jackson Hawes, we want you to focus your attention on being the best blocking tight end you can be. Landon Jackson, we need to get you caught up because we really feel like we might need to put you on the football field. Obviously, at this point, it might take an injury for that to happen. But I think there's a couple of people. I know Joe Marino is one of them. He's like talked about like, wow, like they're not really getting a lot of special team snaps. I don't think there's much there other than the fact that I think the Bills just want them to focus on offense and defense right now because they really feel like they might need those 2 guys. So I don't think there's anything more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, Eric and Sal on Turf to Take, like Eric had, pulled some clips from Landon Jackson against the Bears, and some of his pass rush metrics actually looked pretty decent, but the problem was he didn't get home at all, right? Bajan escaped the pocket a bunch, and he missed, right, on some tackles and missed on some opportunities. So it's like, okay, there's some flash there. That's good, but I agree with you. He's probably not ready yet to be a meaningful contributor.
All right. Up next, let's transition now to the offensive side of the football. Talk a little bit of offense here. And let's talk about the depth receiver competition. Specifically, I want to focus in on Tyrell Shavers, and I want to focus in on Elijah Moore here. Buy or sell? Tyrell Shavers has a better shot to make the 53-man roster than Elijah Moore.
Oh, wow. You know what? Like, oh, man. You know what? I'll buy on this for now. Like I still think Elijah Moore. I think they're both going to make the team. I'll put it to you that way. I think they'll both make the team. I think Moore obviously had a tough drop, but I think in the first game, the first preseason game against the Giants, I thought he ran some good routes. He did make a couple catches. I think was it one catch or two catches last night. And I still think from a route running perspective, that's valuable to the Bills, what he brings. I do think Tyrell Shavers has played well in the preseason. I think he was nearly, his stat line looked nearly even better if Mike White could have hit him on that ball down the right sideline. But he's made plays when called upon, and especially last night in a game where there was far and few in between to kind of see from a positive standpoint. He was one of the better players on the field for the Bills, I thought. And I'll say bye, but it's really kind of a cop out because I think both will make the team. I think the Bills are going to keep 6 wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm going to buy this as well because I think that it's not even so much that I think Tyrell Shavers has a better shot at making the 53-man roster than Elijah Moore, because here's the counterpoint to the Elijah Moore argument, right? Like I think Tyrell Shavers is ahead of Elijah Moore at this point, but the counterpoint is Moore apparently fared very well in the joint practices, which is something we didn't really see. Maybe we'll see a little bit of it on Hard Knocks, but the reports were like things started to click for Moore in the joint practice, and that's clearly what the Bills value, not the game where Moore struggled. And Moore has guaranteed money on his contract. We've seen the Bills cut loose guys at guaranteed money before. OJ Howard is the example that I can think of the most recent, but we've seen it. So there's a chance Elijah Moore could go. But I do think, right, the more that I think about it, Shavers is making plays. I think it's incredible the way he has become a well-rounded receiver, from like a really tall, like stick-like figure who could just run really fast down the field to a guy who is stacking defenders, who is looking really good down the field in terms of his route running and the things he's doing at the stem. Like he's legitimately separating from some of these guys in his one-on-one opportunities in the preseason. He's making a ton of plays, or almost plays. He played a ton of team snaps against the Bears, special team snaps, and he's known for doing that in college. I think he has a chance to carve out a Mac Hollins type role, right? That role that Mac Hollins filled last year. And I think there's a chance the Buffalo Bills keep 6 receivers. Somebody mentioned, could Curtis Samuel go on IR? Maybe that's one of the outs the Buffalo Bills take. But I could see a situation where Shavers is wide receiver 4 and Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore are both on the roster, but they are competing every week for wide receiver 5. One of them is inactive, wearing their joggers, and the other one is wearing a sweatsuit. The other one is playing football. So I think Shavers is ahead in terms of I think he might get more snaps than Samuel and Moore. And Samuel and Moore, while they both might make the roster, are competing for who gets a jersey week in and week out.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that because they clearly valued what Mac did a year ago. They brought in Josh Palmer, and the thought was is he the Mac replacement? Maybe from an offensive standpoint, but then they're gonna, they're not gonna be afraid to use a guy like that on, for blocking and other things going downfield. So again, yeah, with Samuel and Moore, Samuel not being able to stay healthy, somewhat of a I don't want to call it a redundant skill set necessarily, but they do bring some of the same things to the table that is Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore. So you're right. It could be those two fighting for one active game day spot each week.
Walter S. comes in and says, I just don't see anyone grabbing Shavers if he's on the practice squad. 31 other teams have Shavers right now, and their fan base wants to hang on to that. They're convinced will be snatched from the practice squad. I don't disagree. I will say more Bills get snatched than any other team in the league. That's just a fact over the last 5 or 6 years. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. But I will say we're at the point where it's why do I want to stash Tyrell Shavers in the practice squad? I want Tyrell Shavers to play. I want him out there gunning on special teams. I want him out there, playing at this point, because he has proved the guy sprained his ankle, right? Or hurt his ankle and went out there and 4 or 5 days later was making plays and has been making plays on an injured ankle. Whereas Curtis Samuel, we've barely seen the dude in his 2 years here. He spent more time on the training table than on the football field. Right. Yep. So do I think Curtis Samuel is a better overall receiver? Of course I do. But at this point, I want to see Tyrell Shavers on the field in the regular season. I don't want to see him wearing a tracksuit on the sideline because he's on the practice squad. So that's the point. That's the point where I'm getting with Shavers here. All right, on to the next topic, and that is the running back position. And one of the lone bright spots of this preseason has been Frank Gore Jr., despite that fumble that he had in this game. So speaking of practice squad, buy or sell, Frank Gore Jr. will clear waivers and get to our practice squad this year.
Bye. Yeah, he'll make it to the practice squad. Yeah, I'll play the percentages on this and figure that like 96% of the players will get through and make it to your own practice squad. So he's been fun watch. Obviously we know the pedigree for him. Mm-hmm. He's not going to make the team. I think we all know that. But he is a nice guy to have on the practice squad, and he's flashed a bit more this preseason than he did even a year ago. So there's been some development with Frank Gore Jr., but yeah, I'll buy he's going to make it through and get to the practice squad.
And his special teams reps were not great in that first game, but guess what? His pass blocking reps were pretty good in the Chicago game. Like, he was getting after his pass blocker. So I'm really, I love the nuance that Frank Gore Jr. has seemed to add into his game. He's slippery. He looks more comfortable as a pass catcher. He's getting after it as a pass blocker. Like, legitimately, if one of our top three goes down, I really hope and wish that Frank Gore Jr. is on the practice squad. I'm going to agree with you and buy this. I really just want to talk about Frank Gore Jr. for a minute, and that's why I made this one of our buy or sells, just because, like, dude, he's really fun. And I just feel bad for running backs in this day and age because there's just so freaking many of them. Like, you go to every single football team. Like, I see a team with a bad running back room, and I'm like, how do you let that happen?
I mean, look at the.
I was watching the Raiders last year, and like they were rolling out Sincere McCormick and like nothing else, and I'm like,
they had the worst running back room in the NFL last year.
And it's so much better now, like Genty and Mostert and Dylan Lobby, and it's like, how do you have a bad running back room in the National Football League? Just your basement, your floor should be just like, I have an average running back room. Like, if you have an embarrassing running back room in the National Football League, like, what are you doing as a general manager? There's just so many of them.
Yeah, it should not be. That should be the easiest room to have serviceable talent out of any position group. I mean, look at the Broncos. Like, Audric Estime is probably going to get cut from the Broncos. Probably. So it's like, it's like the guys like that are out there.
Final sort of buy or sell here this evening. Another one in relation to the offense. The quarterback competition, it's over. Buy or sell the backup quarterback competition. That's sort of a bad headline. It should have been QB2 competition. The QB2 competition is over.
I think it is. Look, going into training camp and going into the preseason, I wanted this to be more of a battle. I thought Mike White had some gamesmanship to him. Not saying he had a lot of game as far as talent and stuff, but that dude was getting folded last night like he did by Matt Milano when he was with the Jets. So uninspiring effort from Mike White. I'm not even really sure why they put Mitch Trubisky out there, to be honest. And
I was shocked when he went into the game. I thought it was going to be the Shane Buechele show in the second half. I was so surprised when Mitch Trubisky went into that game.
So yeah, I think Mitch didn't even have to take a snap in that game, and he had probably taken a huge leg up in the competition. Now, look, there's still one more game left, but I think it's nearly over.
Yeah, I'm buying that it's over. Like, even when Mitch Trubisky was in that game, he was making plays, but like everyone around him was screwing up. Like, there was just penalties galore. Like, the offense had a pulse for the first time the entire game when he went out there. Just like, we made a big play, but it all came back. We made a big play, but it came back. We made a big play. Like, that's what it felt like when Mitch Trubisky.
All that offensive pass interference on Davidson was BS. I mean, that wiped out a big play. Yeah.
And then it's just, I mean, if you think about it, to me, it's about, and he's not what he used to be, but you want your backup quarterback to be like a little slippery, able to move, make plays on the run, do things like that. And Mike White is just such a statue. Like, as good as the Buffalo Bills offensive line is, they get bailed out a little bit by Josh Allen. There's a little give and take here. So
there's a give and take. Yeah.
You, especially in the National Football League, I think want your backup quarterback to have some variance, and the variance is going to come from the legs. So to me, that's where Mitch Trubisky comes in, because I don't think, like, Mike White, if I'm the Detroit Lions, I'm calling the Buffalo Bills, and I'm like, can I get Mike White? Because like the way you protect for Jared Goff is the way you're going to protect for Mike White. And the Lions seem to have a huge issue with their backup quarterback position. If I'm the Lions, I'm like trying to call and trade a 7th round pick for Mike White or something like that. Mike White has value. Don't get me wrong. Like, the dude's got an arm. And that's why it was awesome to have him all training camp, because he got your receivers ready. Because what can you not do in training camp? Touch the quarterback. So Mike White is just pissing missiles all over the field to his wide receivers. And then the second you get to the games and guys can touch him, not so easy to make those throws all over the field. So in a practice setting, it's great because it gets your receivers ready, because the guy's got a cannon. He's got an arm. He can throw the ball around. But in terms of being your QB2, I just don't know. Like, I would even consider, and the Bills won't do this. The Bills will put him on the practice squad if he clears. And if he doesn't clear or another team picks him up, they'll just put Shane Buechele as their third quarterback. But if I were the Buffalo Bills, I'd look for a variance at my third quarterback for the practice squad. Guys like Bryce Perkins, guys who can move around a little bit, but they won't do that. But that would be my preference. If Mike White, you served your purpose in the preseason, go get me that variance at quarterback with his legs for the regular season on the practice squad. But again, Bills will not do that.
Yeah, unless they can find any kind of draft compensation for him, then for sure, like go ahead.
But then it'll just be Shane Buechele. It won't be anyone else. All right, final preseason week 2 thoughts here as we sort of round out the conversation this evening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect it's going to be a fun episode of Hard Knocks tomorrow. I think it'll be a very it won't be great as far as like them showing the preseason game from yesterday. But look, I think my final thoughts is the depth on this team didn't show up with any kind of physicality or intensity. And I wonder about the fact that doesn't really line up with kind of how the Bills typically play in regular season games. So it's like it's almost like a coaching thing here to me, as far as like why is the coaching staff not getting these guys hyped up to kind of try to make the team or compete for roster spots. We'll see what happens in week 3 of the preseason. I am glad we can kind of put this one behind us, because like the preseason already is a tough watch, and this was a tough watch, and hopefully at least week 3 will be a little more entertaining. John
Sanders comes in and says, Hard Knocks better not just give us cookie cutter fluff tomorrow. From what I've been hearing, the Bills have final say, like final cut. So I wouldn't expect much more than cookie cutter fluff tomorrow. When I'm watching Hard Knocks tomorrow, I guarantee you're going to see a feel good story about James Cook and getting his contract extension. There'll be a segment on that. There will be joint practice highlights where they'll probably highlight. I think maybe we'll see Keon Coleman featured a little bit in this episode, and we'll see some of that. We'll see some, like, the Bills really gave us nothing in terms of like audio visual for their joint practice with the Chicago Bears. They were pretty tight-lipped about it. Even the one highlight they gave us, the Keon Coleman touchdown, they selectively edited the crap out of that. So you couldn't even see the route he was running or anything. Like, it was Josh Allen throwing the ball, cut to Keon Coleman catching the ball. Like, that's all you saw. So maybe we'll get a little bit more out of the joint practice from the Hard Knocks crew than we got from the Buffalo Bills. And it'll close with the Bills getting their butt whooped and Sean McDermott like reaming them out, which is probably what Sean McDermott wanted anyway. Like, Sean McDermott just wanted a reason to ream out his guys so he can sort of like reignite that fire before the season starts. The one thing for Hard Knocks that I'm looking forward to is just seeing how they frame some of the position battles. Because again, the Bills have some of the selective editing. The Bills have the editing feature and the editing button. So it'll be interesting to see like what position battles they highlight.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder, maybe they'll put a spotlight maybe on Shavers and Hamler. Like they'll continue to feature Hamler, I'm sure, because they're
going to feature Hamler because he's going to get cut. Like, that's, I think, why they're featuring Hamler is like,
but, and he made exactly, and he made a couple plays yesterday. Maybe they'll have a little bit of Shavers, like I said. Be interesting to see how if they do anything with the linebackers, right? If like Andreessen gets some highlights on him, but yeah, I don't know. I like it. Like, it's kind of hard to predict because, like you said, they have the final say. So we'll see.
One final talking point before we head out of here that I forgot to mention was the offensive line depth. Man, I need Tillin Grable. I need Alec Anderson. I need Cedric Van Pernbranger. I need them to get back stat. Like, I like RVD. I actually really like what I'm seeing so far from Kendrick Green. He always had a high upside. We loved him in the pre-draft process. He looks like he'll be like a nice solid reserve. Obviously, they've been moving guys around a lot, so it's been a little rough it was a little rougher for Chase Lunt in his second go around. But I mean, they were mixing and matching dudes, and guys were taking their licks. But I love the depth of this offensive line: Grable, Anderson, SVPG. Then you get to the RVD, the Green, and the Lunt. But man, does that that grace that you have for that offensive line depth, it evaporates rather quickly each and every time a guy gets hurt. So the Bills had unprecedented health along their offensive line the last couple of years. And if these backups keep getting hurt at the rate they're getting hurt, we're going to need that to stay true when it comes to the starters, because man, I like the upside of some of these guys, but right now the offensive line depth is a little concerning, not because of the players, but because of the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, and the injuries have been one of the biggest stories of camp and practices, right? So far for this campaign, like just the number of injuries. I mean, fortunately, none thus far have been like overly serious to where guys are going to miss multiple weeks into the regular season, you would think, but like enough significance to where guys are like missing the bulk of training camp and now practices leading up to these preseason games. So, and they've had a ton of guys injured, and so it's one of those where it's just like, would you rather have like one guy injured with a major injury who's going to miss like the season, or would you rather have this situation where like half the team's injured for like short period of time? And it's like, that's tough in training camp and in practices, because like you need these reps to kind of figure out how the roster is going to shake out for the last 7 to 8 guys. So it's been tough.
Well, William Conlon comes in and says, "Don't disrespect Richard Garage." We don't disrespect Dick Garage here on this podcast. We don't do that. We're huge Richard Garage fans, but again, he's a guy I think is going to be a valuable piece of the practice squad. I don't think he's 53-man roster material. John Sanders comes in and says, and this is the last thing we'll talk about tonight, is Buccaneers game expectations. How long do you guys want the starters to play in the final preseason game? I would actually like the starters to play a little bit. That's always been my philosophy. I think some of these slow starts that we get off to are in part because we don't really play guys all that much in the preseason. I understand the Bills are doing what they are doing because of all the injuries that sort of has fallen upon this team this year. But my expectation is that 0 starters will play. And I literally have no expectations for this game whatsoever. It's just, I'm a preseason guy because I love watching guys who get drafted. They killed my soul. I have no expectations for this game. I don't really care. I'll watch it. I'll get excited about it like the morning of, but like Sean McDermott has crushed my soul in terms of loving the preseason.
I mean, Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels were playing tonight. I mean, Jamar Chase was playing tonight. Like, my expectation is they won't play, right? Should they play? You can have that debate. Like, I understand you don't want to risk injury, but like, you're not playing the Cardinals week 1. You're not playing the Jets week 1 this year.
You lost to the Jets.
Yeah, you're playing the Ravens in prime time. So would it be nice to have them get a little bit of a tune-up in some real action before that game? Yeah, and then Sean McDermott's basically leaning on these joint practices as kind of like the closest these guys are going to get to real game action, and it'll be another conversation point if they start out slow again week 1. So,
and a counterpoint that a lot of people have pointed out to me on social media too. So I want to get this in here for anyone who hasn't heard this counterpoint yet. The Ravens appear to not be playing their starters much either this preseason. So the Bills and the Ravens will both be possibly rusty when they head out there in primetime Sunday football week 1. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, killed it in the comments section. If you're looking to support this show, there are 3 things that you can do. Number 1 is you can smash that like button. It's the easiest way to help us out here. Helps us with the algorithm. Second thing you do is, if we are going to spread this thing around, if we are going to make the Air Raid Hour even more popular than it already is, I mean, I shouldn't have patted ourselves on the back like that. We're not that popular. But if we're going to grow this thing organically, we want to do it with you guys clicking that share button and sharing it out to friends, family, people you think would enjoy this show, whether it's shooting a text message or posting on social media, whatever. Help us get the word out. And if you think there are people out there that would enjoy having this conversation with us every Monday night. Share it with the people. And then the third thing you can do is once the show is done being live and we are available on demand, head on back to the video and leave a comment. It can be any comment. It can be a compliment. It can be constructive criticism. It can just be a go Bills. It can be a cheers, whatever. Go out there, and once the video is available on demand, leave a comment. That really helps us with the algorithm as well. And we also make it a point to go in and respond to all those comments over the course of the week as well. So if it's a take you have or a criticism you have or an extension of the conversation that we've been having here, we will continue that conversation with you in the comment section of the YouTube video. So that helps us with the algorithm as well. Thank you guys so much. We always appreciate you. You guys make this show what it is. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!